Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Mortgages by Gretchen show, where I talk to real people in the field of real estate and business who are not only experts, but they're generous and willing to share their knowledge and wisdom with us here. And the goal of the show is for you to gain some information and tips to help you reach your goals in business and owning real estate, and to take some of the guesswork out of what to do or who to call while you're in the process. Today, I'm very grateful to have Dan Hogenbirk with me here. And Dan owns and operates North Lakes Developments and Construction. I'm going to read a little bit about Dan. He is a creative real estate investor with a passion for improving his community and the planet with missing middle housing. He's focused on the build to rent model, targeting increasing density and energy efficiency. His company serves his investors and customers by determining the best use for a property, then taking it to the finish line. Dan and his brother-in-law Bill started by purchasing his family landscaping business in 2018. And with pressures in the industry and discovering a passion for real estate, they have since pivoted the business. In 2023, Dan is in the position to focus completely on growing their real estate business. And I first met Dan at Durham REI, which is a membership group for real estate investors and their partners, for people like me who are mortgage brokers. And I'm very impressed with Dan's vision and ability to carry out the most cutting edge building and real estate investing ideas. He just jumps right in. So I really want to talk about that today. So Dan, please introduce yourself and give us any more background information you think would be helpful, and who you work with and how you help them.
Certainly. Thank you, Gretchen. So I'm Dan Hogenbirk. Our company now is focusing on helping investors. Either they can partner with us and work on a project together as an equity investor, or we'll actually build projects out for other people as well. We have a number of our own that we're working on. We started with some smaller projects and slowly kind of grew to now we're doing mainly small scale apartment buildings or small compounds with, let's say, three to 9 units is sort of where we're specializing in right now.
Okay. All right. So, Dan, many people want to convert single family homes to multifamily, and only some people have the courage and patience to learn what they need to learn to actually be successful and see it through. So, how did you find the courage or whatever you feel it takes to really move forward in that area?
In that space, basically what happened for us was that we had some pressures behind us because the snow industry wasn't working out for us very well. So we have a bunch of employees that we had to keep busy. And if we basically we were losing money by doing the snow division. So we had to find a way to make it where the company was actually making money. So we discovered real estate and discovered interior construction. So we started with a small project, which is what I would recommend most people to start with. We started with one existing duplex that needed some basic renovations. And the other one we started with was a retrofit. So we already had a kitchen and a bathroom downstairs, and we sort of learned the ropes there. We were pretty nervous to start, just like anybody else, even though I already had a pretty strong construction background. I'd never worked inside any homes. So that was kind of a good stepping stone. And then from there, every year we kept pushing the boundaries a little bit. So the next year we would do like a full gut. And then the year after that, we had one where we ripped out the main floor. So there was no joists in the main floor, and then rejoisted it and refloored it. So every year we're trying to do something a little bit further than what we'd done before. So always pushing the boundaries just a little bit. And that's what I would recommend for other people as well, is just kind of go just a little bit past your comfort zone and then try to take the leap of faith to do that. If what's going to work might be past what you feel comfortable with, then you should probably try to find someone who has done it before, or find a contractor that's done that before that can kind of ease you into it. But that's basically how I'd try to get started. Just keep pushing the boundaries a little bit. Yeah.
I think that's great advice. And it was you and Bill, and then I guess, did you have some subcontractors or other people help you along the way, or how did you
So
manage that?
how we started for the construction side. Bill didn't help that much at the beginning because he was running the snow division, and what we were doing was I was running the landscaping, and I'd take a few guys between snowfalls, and we'd basically renovate houses between snowfalls, and then they'd go back, and then I'd have like one guy that was helping me out all year round, and then the next year it'd be like three guys helping me out all year round from our company, and then the year after that we was six, and then eventually we sold the snow division off. There was of course subs that were helping us, like we don't do our own electrical, we don't do our own plumbing, HVAC. We've obviously had like realtors and other mortgage brokers and stuff guiding us in different areas, but we kind of took the lead on the construction side.
Okay. And I know you've done some, or maybe you're in the middle of it now, like converting where it might be tell me if I'm wrong about this. Are you converting like a single family to a triplex and you're doing like garden suites? So what, maybe expand on that and
Sure.
let
Yeah.
us know what you're doing with that.
For sure. So we haven't converted a single family home yet into a triplex. What we have done, we've done quite a few duplex conversions. We've done some now where we did some vertical splits. So one of our more recent ones that was fairly challenging was we purchased a triplex where none of the tenants were paying any rent, and it was over 120 years old. So the building was in pretty terrible condition. So we probably spent 5 or 6 hours on due diligence on this place, trying to figure out how we could make it work. And what ended up making the most sense was to do a vertical split, so take it from a triplex to a duplex, and then add a coach house in the backyard. And that property is going to be a really interesting one because basically both those units, because they used to be three and now two, are quite a bit bigger than your standard units. So they're getting quite high rents, and then we're going to get a really nice coach house in the back. So as an individual sort of renovation project, that was probably the hardest one. We've done a few other pretty big retrofits on some other Century homes as well. Those were pretty tough, but no 3 unit conversions yet. But I'm sure we'll be doing some shortly.
Okay. And these ones you actually own and are doing this, and then are you going to buy and hold, or are you going to sell, or what's your plan?
Typically, we're looking for buy and hold. All those we're buy and hold. We've sold 2 flips at this point. Like we're mainly looking for buy and hold, but if the opportunity for a good flip shows up, we'll do that as well. But we're more attracted to the long-term wealth because we're very used to, from having that construction background, of you get the job, you do the job, you get paid, but then you always have to find the next job, the next job, the next job. So having it where you own some of the assets in the background where it can generate some wealth takes a little bit of that pressure off for trying to always find a job to make sure that you're getting paid. So we've always been more attracted to the buy and hold model versus like flipping and making quick cash, basically.
Okay. And what cities are you doing the garden, specifically like garden suites or the conversion?
Yeah, we'll do any from Pickering to Port Hope or Coburg, up north to Port Perry. Sort of the circle that we're working in is the same as our other construction company.
Okay. And in terms of getting permits for those, or getting, the okay, because it's a fairly newer thing, you kind of, are you familiar like with what cities are okay with it, or what the different bylaws are?
Fairly familiar, particularly in Oshawa and Clarington. Those are the areas that I work in the most. Um, for the other ones, I'd have to look it up to become more familiar with them. But in general, they're all very similar. There's a few nuances that you'd want to know, like what's the sizing that they're allowing, what's the height that they're allowing. There's been a bit of difference between municipalities as well with their parking requirements, like tandem or not tandem. Are they abiding by the 3 parking spots from Bill 23, which they're supposed to, or are they not? So each one you have to do a little bit of due diligence. Normally, it doesn't take too long for for myself anymore, as I've gone through quite a few different municipalities, but you definitely want to do some due diligence on it beforehand. In general, the planners that I've dealt with at the city are fairly supportive of this. We're starting to get a change where a lot of them do support more density, and you're getting support for a lot of these types of projects from the city, which is nice.
That's awesome. And the fact you have that experience is great. It's really helpful. Okay, so recently I got an email from you, and we touched base about that you're talking about tiny homes and leased land. Mentioned it in your newsletter. Um, what are your thoughts about this? And is it something you think you'll pursue, or is it something further down the horizon? Maybe educate me a bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think this is a pretty neat opportunity because I'm someone who really likes to find like a win-wins, and this is a neat win-win for sure. So the general idea is that someone goes out and purchases their own tiny home, and then they're going to be trying to find a landlord where they can lease some property to place their tiny home on. So where the benefits are for the landlord is, let's say if you go to build your own coach house, you're going to have to put up, let's say, $350,000 in capital to build it. So it might not even be feasible for a lot of investors, but they might already have a property that has, let's say, a 175-foot deep backyard, or a corner lot that's quite large, or something like that. Or maybe they have a big century home near the edge of town where there's a large property which is got a good view, something like that, where they're not sure how they can take advantage of it with where their current capital position is. So then they can basically approach someone who's purchased their own home, and they can make a deal for them leasing a certain portion of their land, and then you can get some cash flow from it, which is great for you because you didn't have to put up that much money in order to make this work. And it's great for them because they're mobile with their job. They get to move their home to wherever their job goes. And then the other big benefit for them is that you can purchase these with a mortgage. You can actually purchase the mobile homes with the mobile tiny homes with a mortgage. So they're a portion of their rental payment is actually going to go towards actually paying down their mortgage. So they're actually building equity, whereas if they're renting somewhere else, they won't be. So it's a really good opportunity for both, depending on the circumstances. Will I be pursuing them? I'm debating on pursuing it. I have one property where it would be a really good opportunity, I think, because it's pretty wooded in the backyards. It's over 200 feet deep, and we're not planning to do any further development on it for a number of years. So if someone can go in the backyard and you make, let's say, an extra $1,000 a month, and you spent $30,000 to help them get it all set up, that's a pretty good return and interesting opportunity that's available now for sure.
Okay, that's very, very interesting because I do have a couple people in my mind who they're not in a position right now to be able to get a mortgage for a bigger amount for a home. But could be a connection that I could say, hey, talk to Dan or whoever, various people who maybe who are going to have that ability to add the tiny home. So I think that's fantastic. Very exciting. Okay, cool. A question came to my mind back to the coach house situation. And sorry, century homes you mentioned. I had a situation recently where somebody had trouble getting insurance for doing some renovations on a century home. They couldn't get the home insurance. So have you ever run into that, or is that not usually an issue?
I haven't run into it actually. Well, I've had it where we have two different insurance companies that we or brokers that we work with regularly, and one came back with a quote for like $5,000 for renovating it for 6 months, and the other one had a quote for like $1,800 for the year. So it depends on which insurance company that you're working with. So the insurance provider that we're working with, they primarily insure farms. So they're very used
Okay.
to insuring that style of building. So they're quite comfortable with it. So
And do you
yeah, you
mind
just need
saying
to
who
keep
that is?
shopping
What
around.
the name of the insurance company?
Yeah, the HTM.
HTM. Okay, good to know.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right, cool.
they're great to work with.
Okay. Um, you also talked in your newsletter about cottage court. What is that? And do you see this as becoming popular?
Yeah, so that's another interesting one. I really have liked cottage courts as an idea for a while. And basically, a cottage court is a style of development where there are multiple small homes on a single lot, and typically they all have a small private area behind the home, and there's a larger community area where people get to interact. These courts can be very large, and they can have lots of different community areas. Like they could have a community garden, or they could have like bike racks, or like a big community gathering area, or they could be quite small and just kind of have like a decent sized lawn or something like that in the middle. Really depends. And what I like about it, it can be quite creative. And the other thing that's really interesting about it is that it's another way to get like an entry level product into the market, because the homes will be quite a bit less expensive. So eventually you may be able to have it where you condominiumize the lot, and then each one can be sold off. And that would be a way to get um, some affordable homes into the market. And it's also a really good way to get higher density into some of these older neighborhoods. So we've done a few projects in older neighborhoods, and it's fairly regular that the community comes out and they don't particularly like what you're doing. They don't like change. They particularly don't like larger projects that are coming in, but having it where it's like these smaller homes with lots of green space. Typically, there's a lot of green space in these developments. It really is a much more appealing or attractive thing to look at than like an apartment building where the rest of the lot is typically just going to be pavement, right? So it's
It's
a
more
good way
attractive,
to,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah. And is that something that can be done in Durham region, or do you need to be further out? Or...
Currently, there's no zoning that allows for them. So at the tiny home show, there's a company that's working on getting zoning approvals at different municipalities, where they'll add it in to their zoning bylaws, so that way they're able to be done here in Ontario. There's a number of places in the States where they're done. There is one done in Newfoundland as well. I think it was Newfoundland. So they are coming around. They used to be more popular. Um, there you could potentially, like, getting very creative, you could potentially zone something for multi-residential. Typically they don't have a building limit for multi-residential, so you could therefore do that style of development. But currently it's not easy to do, but you could definitely try it.
So this might coming down the pike.
Coming down the pike, I think it's something interesting to watch for, because there are quite a few lots where this would be the ideal development style, particularly in places like Coburg. That's a good spot for it. Or there's a lot of spots in Bowmanville where this makes sense. So if it did become allowed, it'd be definitely something that we'd like to pursue a lot.
Okay, I think that's really interesting. And so you learned a lot of this at the tiny home show, I think. Did you say? Is that where some of this came from, or various places?
A lot of this came from the tiny home show. I typically try to read what's going on in planning, kind of in the planning world, and read a lot of different books on the ideas and of what they want to bring into development over the next 50 years. So a lot of these ideas come from those areas, but the people that were kind of taking charge and really trying to get them implemented, they were actually at the tiny home show, which I thought was pretty neat.
That's cool. And where was that, in Toronto, or where was
I
that?
was in Ancaster, so just outside of Hamilton. So
Okay.
that was the one I went to was the second annual one. So there's a second time running. I'm sure they'll probably do it out there again next year. And yeah, it was pretty neat. They had like 30 or 40 tiny homes to tour, and a bunch of different speakers. So it was definitely worth the trip. Worth the trip if you're interested in this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems to be the way things need to go. And there are many people, myself included, that I actually would be okay with a smaller space. It's just me and my husband, no pets, no kids at home. So why not have something more, um, financially less expensive, as well as more of like a community, and could still be beautiful and usable. So I think it's exciting.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so too. Definitely think seeing them where you can make a nice place for 350 square feet or 400 square feet is definitely pretty eye opening for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. So is there anything else related to that that you want to share about the show, or things you learned? Is that pretty much cover?
That's the majority of it. What the other things I thought were very interesting from the show was just their use of space, because you have to get really creative to get all the elements that you want into a home in such a small space. So, like a few that I really liked, for one of the houses, they instead of having a standard size fridge because they had no space for it, underneath the stairs they put two mini fridges. So that was how
Ah,
they actually got enough fridge space for the unit. There's like different things like that. Um, Another one I really liked was they actually had some of the newer hot water tanks look quite a bit nicer. So they put it just kind of above the toilet, and like that space is never used in a home, right? So just finding a new spot for it, and just really finding use for every inch. I thought that was pretty neat.
that is so cool. Love it. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing all that with us. So what would be your top three tips for first-time investors renovating a single-family property, or just in general, getting into it, some things similar to what you're doing for the newbies?
For the newbies, the first one that I would consider would be, if your business plan doesn't really involve you becoming the construction expert with where things are going, where to get a property that's going to be a buy and hold, the construction aspect is going to start to get quite a bit bigger on a lot of these different properties, would be to find someone to do the construction for you. Uh, if you're not planning to really do this for your business, it definitely makes sense to get someone on board to take that over. The second one that I've learned over time is to take quite a bit of time going over your designs when they come back in. So you're probably going to be waiting at least, let's say, 3 weeks, if not longer. If you're doing a basement apartment, it might be 3 weeks. But if you're doing something larger than that, you're going to be waiting a while to get these designs back. And once you get them and you give the okay, that's what you're getting. So typically, what I like to do is keep the designs for a few days. I like to get a tape measure out and actually measure out what the size of each room's gonna be, so I can get a feel of what that space is actually like before I give the okay. And I'll spend a few days mulling it over, and that way you're more certain to actually get the product that you like. You don't want to have it where you're actually building it and all of a sudden you don't like some space. You wish that bedroom was a little bit bigger or something like that. So make sure to take some time on the designs. And the probably the last one that's going to be pretty important is make sure that you're when you're trying to figure out your budget, that you are talking to someone who's done a similar project recently, because construction costs have changed quite a bit over the last few years. Looking at the prices that we paid when we started back in 2018 to 2019, which is when a lot of, let's say, members of Durham REI were fairly active doing basement apartments and so forth. A lot of the current members, and then if you think of what the prices are now at 2023, they're vastly different. So try to find someone who's done a project, let's say in 2022 and 2023, and ask them what they spent, because you might be in for a pretty rude awakening if you're budgeting what someone told you from a few years ago.
That's good advice. And I know Durham REI is one place you can find people like that to talk to. Are there any other sort of groups or places that you find some good people that you can share this kind of ask questions and they can also ask you questions?
Okay, the second suggestion was Ali Nazarian's Facebook group. So it's a housing developers and build once a month. They have someone who's kind of a developer or builder come on and do a presentation, and then there's a chance for networking at the end and a chance for questions and so forth. So I found that one fairly helpful as well. And Darcy Marler, I did Darcy Marler's course. That one, he regularly has meetings with the course members. I think it's every 2 weeks or so, and that's good as well if you're getting started. There's a lot of new people there to talk to. For particularly, these are more for developers and builders, but in general, that's kind of the way that things are going. For if you want to do buy and holds from forced appreciation, there's going to be often now a development component or a new construction component. So these are definitely good places to go if you want some advice.
Okay, that's amazing. And what is your last piece of advice for Canadians right now?
Uh, Probably my last piece of advice for Canadians right now is if you are in the position to purchase a property, I would definitely be considering it right now. I I think the rates won't be staying, well, they might stay high for a little bit longer, but they are in what is generally considered restrictive territory. So they won't be staying at this height forever. Talking to multiple builders in the space, a lot of them have shut down. I think there was a report that in July, 45,000 construction workers got laid off. So the housing supply issue is not getting any better. So getting your hands on the existing supply now is probably not a bad idea. I think you'll do well with an investment if you purchase now or in the next year. I think you'll do quite well.
Okay, that's really important advice because people almost talk themselves out of it, right? So I think that's important to hear.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I definitely think you shouldn't talk yourself out of it.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So how can people reach you if they want to connect or learn more or join your Instagram? Check you out there. How can people find you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, my company Instagram is North Lakes Developments. So you can check me out there. You can check out my personal Instagram as well. It's just Dan Hogenbirk. We have a website which is North Lakes Developments, and we put out a newsletter every 2 weeks with different development tips and updates on what we're doing. And you can also just reach me on Facebook, which is just Dan Hogenbirk on Facebook. And yeah, those
Okay,
are good spots to reach me.
perfect. Well, I'm really grateful for your time and thank you so much for all the great information that people are going to definitely benefit from.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.